What's going on, miners, and welcome back to the channel. So it's been 3 years since I started my crypto mining journey. And at the same time, it's been 3 years since I started this YouTube channel right here. And I thought, what a way to celebrate hitting 100,000 subscribers to talk about my journey over the last 3 years. And hopefully you guys pick up on one thing from this that you can take away from it. So once upon a time, no, just kidding. I'm also standing, by the way, because I thought, okay, maybe I'll ramble much standing versus actually doing this sitting down. So hopefully this doesn't run too long. Now, no editing. We're doing this completely straight up, no takes, just jumping into it and being just natural and open with you guys and entirely transparent. So took some notes here to help kind of keep me on track. And this is definitely going to be a video where you guys can throw it on in your car and listen to it while you're driving or at the gym or on your way to work or while you're at work. There's not going to be anything visual other than my ugly face here. So let's dive into it. So going back to 2021, I was actually, my wife and I had sold our home and we were living with my mother-in-law for about 6 months while our home that we're in now was ready for us to move into. And during that time, we were staying with my mother-in-law in her finished basement with my entire family. And, you know, it wasn't an opportunity for me to do anything with mining. At that point in time, I was kind of at that point in my life where I was like, I want to get into crypto and into content creation. I knew that was the case. And so I was like, what can I do from here? And so I spent about 6 months spending time researching and learning about YouTube. What works, what doesn't work, what are great tips and tricks, what are things that I shouldn't really do. And I learned very quickly that before I was going to step into the crypto mining space as a miner, I wanted to learn more about the crypto mining YouTube side of things. So I started watching a ton of content. Sorry to interrupt today's video, but wanted to give a huge shout out to today's video sponsor, ASICprices.com. Just recently, I was in the market for my next Caspa miner, the Ice River KS3M. And so my first stop was ASICprices.com. ASICprices.com has everything I need in one place when it comes time for my next ASIC purchase. First off, accurate daily profitability metrics. Second, historical ASIC hardware prices. Third, ASIC hardware device specifications. And finally, my favorite, a list of resellers and their pricing in one location. I love it. No more spending hours hunting for the best price. Go over and check out ASICprices.com today via the link in the video description down below. And I was watching people like Mining Chamber and Bitsby Tripping and Son of a Tech and Red Panda Mining and Red Fox Crypto. And I was just absorbing as much as I could. And at that time, I really didn't know anything. So it's just like, what can I learn from these guys? But more importantly, what does the space look like for a brand new YouTuber? And that's where I was definitely stepping into, kind of learning things that worked and didn't work. And I don't tell Red Panda Mining this, but I like the style that he went with. That was point and click. It was vlog style. And where I wanted to try something was, can I create a YouTube channel without showing my face? And my goal was to make sure that when people consume the content, that they were basing it off of, and judging me off of my content and not off of my face. We're humans. So we naturally judge someone in like the first 10 seconds. Their mannerisms, the way they talk, the way they look, their hand gestures, which mine go crazy unless I go like this. So I wanted to try that out. Maybe that was something that helped my channel take off. Maybe it wasn't. But after I got into this house, and at the time this was an unfinished basement, I knew I wanted to start crypto mining, and more specifically GPU mining. And so this is where we started, in this basement, in this general area, actually right here, with a few folding tables and a computer directly behind me on my desk. And it's been a wild ride over the last few years to think all of the different areas that we tried to crypto mine, how we tried to crypto mine, what worked, what didn't work, what failed, what was successful. And there was a lot more failures than successful checkboxes on that list. So I started right here with an iPhone 6 SE. And actually my first video I wrote down here, February 15th of 2021. And I didn't have a microphone. I just had my iPhone 6 SE and I just held it in front of me and not even like on any type of like tripod or gimbal or anything, just in my hand, walking around talking to the camera. At that point, I wasn't showing my face or anything. And, you know, I taught myself how to edit within DaVinci Resolve, which is super easy and it's free. And there's a ton of YouTube videos out there. And I remember my first video was, I didn't even know what the frame was, but it was actually a Veta frame. And back in 2021, that was something to be said. And in addition to that, I had a B250 mining motherboard. And where do these things come from? Well, a friend of mine had given them to me like years prior and was like, hey, he was moving. He's like, do you want these? So I was like, sure, I'd love to get into crypto mining at some point. I didn't know what I had. A B250 mining motherboard? Like, damn. For a first motherboard for mining, that was insane. And then a bunch of knockoff cheap, probably Amazon GPU risers. That's all I had. I didn't have anything else. And my first video was like me all excited, showing it off. And I love that. I love that because it was so natural. And it was like my goal as I introduced myself in that video. And you guys can go back and look on the channel, just sort by date. You can see it. And it was, as I said, February of 15th of 2021. I just made my channel a month earlier. And I wanted to document my journey as a crypto miner. And the YouTube was just the second part. So I was going to learn how to crypto mine as a beginner. And I wanted to document that process so that a lot of other people out there like yourselves could learn along the way with me as a GPU miner. And I remember my first two GPUs I bought. Remember the black and red like MSI 970s? That's what I bought. That's what I could afford. You know, at that point, at that time, you know, I'd spent a lot of time, that 6 months prior, just researching on what type of YouTuber I wanted to be. And in the crypto mining space, there was a lot of people. You know, you had your Voss coins out there, and you had a lot of other people that were focused on ASICs and people that were focused on GPU mining, but there were Ethereum GPU mining, and those were more expensive GPUs. And so I wanted to kind of come in at like the bottom as like, hey, I can't afford anything. Let me just buy these cheap 4 GB cards. And man, 970s is where I started. I mined with them for one day in one video. I got them off of Offers Up for $100 each. At that time, they were 970s. Anything you plugged in was making money on Ethereum, but these were 4 GB cards. So I actually put them on Ravencoin and I mined with them for one day in one video and I was hooked. And literally a week later, I sold them $200 each. So I doubled my profit. And man, I was hooked. And you guys know what I'm talking about when you're hooked, especially with crypto mining, that kind of pulls you in and you're like, all right, this is like what I want to do. This is what a hobby that I want to invest in. And man, my first month, you know, I grew like crazy, and it wasn't due to me, you know, knowing some weird Mr. Beast magic. It's just, I think it was all about timing. At that point in time, to give you guys an idea, it was right around like Dogecoin, Elon Musk, like popping off, like Buzzy. And as I said, from a hardware side, anything you plugged in was profitable. And I mean anything. And that's when like GPUs were super hard to come by, and there was just so much value at that moment. So in 1 month, I hit that 1,000 subscriber mark in order to be monetized. And that was huge. And then jump ahead to 3 months, I had hit 5,000 subscribers. And I actually went back to take a look at this. I hit 5,000 subscribers. Now, the 5,000 subscribers wasn't what created the money that I made off of YouTube. It all comes down to views. Subscribers is just an arbitrary number of people kind of committed to you as a YouTuber. It really comes down to views. And the views at that time in 2021, when crypto was pumping, like, was absolutely insane. It's nothing like it was today. So I had only 5,000 subscribers, but the views were through the roof. And that first 3 months, I remember I got paid for the first time. So it was about 2 months, probably, maybe two and a half months worth. And I ended up walking away with $1,293.98 from YouTube, getting paid out through AdSense. And many of you guys will know, as YouTubers, you're not really making money. Like, you're making money from YouTube AdSense, but it's not your primary source of income when you're in this space like we are right now. And man, I thought I was rich. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, this is the guy who 4 gigabit cards, you know, where I started. And so I invested back in my channel. I bought a mic to go with my iPhone 6 SE, and I bought 12 RX 470s, and they were the Sapphire Nitro editions. It was a guy a few hours away. I went and picked them up. That was like my first like local pickup type of deal, and I got all 12 of them. And at that time they were modded for ETH, but as you know, you can't mine with 4 gigabit cards. They had been previously used with Ethereum before the DAG file size and all those things changed. But that's when I got 12 RX 470s. I actually have one right here, right behind me. This is one of those original GPUs. It's on this really cool 3D printed stand. And this was it. Sapphire Nitro. And this thing was awesome. These things were workhorses. I mean, no backplate on these. Easiest thing to work on. And I really, really love these. So I sold all 11 of those actually. And I kept one. It works perfectly fine. But I kept one just for memory. And I love seeing it on the shelf there. So jump ahead a little bit. At that time, Gold Shell was like releasing these mini box miners. And man, I remember like they release on Gold Shell's site and you would have seconds to try to grab one. They were always nabbed up by bots and then sold on eBay and scalped and everything. But I remember the first one I finally got off of Gold Shell. I don't know what your first Gold Shell or box miner was, if it was even Gold Shell. But mine was the Voscoin Tails edition. The RGB ones with the fans in the front that they've never gone back to at Gold Shell, but apparently, heard a rumor, that they will be actually returning with some models, which I think is fantastic. So as time went on, you know, I was collecting these mini box miners and I was building more and more GPU mining rigs, mostly 4 gigabit cards. Remember the 580s? I was huge on 580s. And that was really when I first started to get into 8 gigabit cards that actually could mine Ethereum. My first year in mining, I didn't have anything that could mine Ethereum. It was all 4 gigabit cards. I mean, 1050s were in there, a bunch of other models were in there. It was all these low model cards because that's all I could really afford. But my kind of flagship GPUs were the RX 470s. So at that time, I was growing as a YouTuber and I was also growing my farm. I had, I don't know, 80 GPUs, something crazy. And I was mining right here in my basement and growing into the 580s, as I said, a lot of other models in there. But if you remember, the basement was unfinished. And if you're a longtime follower on the channel, feel free to go back, take a look at it. And I had a bunch of hanging racks with, if you guys remember Chump Change XD, another YouTuber, he was like 3D printing like crazy, these GPU hangers, and everybody was buying these and they were great, amazing for airflow. They worked out really, really well. So I got a bunch of rolling racks and clipped them all into there. I was using server PSUs. I don't know if you guys remember. I was buying HP computers locally, tearing them down and building like a GPU on a board, like a GPU mining rig on a board, and then would wire them up. Sorry, bumped the mic. Wire them up and do the GPU hangers above it on these rolling racks. And I could move them around the basement and stuff like that. Man, I was burning down power supply, like burning up power supplies at that point and just learning about like, oh, I need to get PDUs. And I actually ran a 30 amp 240 volt from the garage all the way down to my basement. I had so many bad decisions. Then I tried to, if you guys remember on the channel, we went the route of a grow tent. Remember the grow tent? Man, we did a whole series on that. I know that was a real big thing. I mean, I originally was turned on to it when Red Panda Mining was doing it in his apartment. And I come across loads of those videos. And then I remember Red Fox Crypto was doing a lot of those in the grow tent. And so I spent months trying to get this grow tent to work. And I was determined, but man, biggest lesson learned, if you guys decide to get in on grow tents, is what I should have done. I didn't even think about it. You know, we never, as newer miners, it's always looking back and be like, man, what should I have done? Is done active intake. For the longest time, I was just sucking air right through the exhaust side and never spent enough time on the intake. And I think, man, we're just so blinded as miners where we're just like, exhaust the heat as fast as possible. Intake was just passive right outside. The exhaust was outside as well, where I learned very quickly, you want more positive air So even if it's active, coming in and then exhausting out less air, but still exhausting out the air. And man, I wish I knew that, then what I knew now. Today's video is sponsored by the team over at ASICmarketplace.com. With crypto mining hardware prices dropping, it's critical to find an online store you can trust with your ASIC purchases. The team at ASICmarketplace.com has you covered with some of the most competitive pricing on the market. No matter what brand you're looking for, ASIC Marketplace has it. To name just a few: Bitmain, Goldshell, WhatsMiner, IBLink, iPolo, JazzMiner, and many more. There are no surprises with ASIC Marketplace. The price listed on their website includes shipping. Imagine that. Finally, ASIC Marketplace takes the buying experience to the next level by accepting cryptocurrency as payment directly on their store. Go check out ASIC Marketplace today via the link in this video's description down below, as well as save $110 at checkout with discount code TheHobbyistMiner. So, moving on from the Grow10 stuff, COVID hit, and I decided I wanted to redo the basement because I was working here from home in my day job, and I had this genius idea. Terrible idea. How did you guys let me do this? I don't understand. But I ended up refinishing my basement, and during that planning period, this room next to me, which is now a glorified closet, I turned into a quote mining room. What a terrible idea. Oh my gosh, what a mess. It was 8 AC Infinity inline fans, 4 sucking in air, 4 sucking out air. And I had 80 GPUs in there in open frame rigs. They were originally hanging rack, then we moved them into open frames. We did a lot of the 12 GPU open frame rigs. What a nightmare. It was absolutely a nightmare. The heat management was just unbearable. And I tried to plan for everything. I did insulated foam board inside there between the stud and drywall, and drop ceiling in place with some foam board on top, and God, none of it worked. Oh my gosh, you can't manage heat in a room like that. It's absolutely insane. I look back on it and I'm like, I spent so much money, so much time, so much effort trying to make that work. It was nuts. Now, moving to positive things during that time period, at the same time, I first started to step into helium. Now, I was coming in on the late side of it, and I remember myself and DJ Mines. I think it's when we first started to build a friendship at that point. We were trying to get our hands on the MNTD gold or the black spot miners, and we were trying to get our hands on those. And at that point, it would they put out an email, and then it would release, and you had seconds to try to buy one up. But if you bought one, you could always get 2, but that was the max you could get. And I remember him and I trying at the exact same time. He ended up getting 2, so he actually ended up, I bought one from him, he sent it down to me. And that was actually what started the series for me. My first DPIN project was the original helium project, and I came late to it, but even coming late to it, I got it installed up in my attic. I installed an 8 dB antenna just inside the attic just to get by. And man, I was making $15.50 a day off of a helium gold spot miner that used 60 watts or even less. I think it was 20 some watts. It was absolutely nuts. But that's really was my first stepping stone into DPIN projects. And it was great. It was very much set it and forget it, and off you went. And I did very, very well with that. I was very, very surprised. So then moving on from there, we got this mining room with 80 GPUs in it. And if you guys want to see this, go back on my channel. I think I have a playlist for my mining basement. Something I don't want to forget. I don't want to remember. But what ended up happening was there's an AC duct above there. And so all this heat, I think the middle of the summer, I was sucking in air from outside and then exhausting that air as fast as I could. Well, when it's 95 outside, it gets sucked in and then into a room with 80 GPUs and then sucked out. It's so hot at all times in that room. It's just having an oven on all the time. And then imagine an AC vent above it that starts sweating. So It was dripping down into the drop ceiling. Had to replace the drop ceiling. Then I started having issues in my house with the AC not working and other vents sweating and messing up my drop ceiling. And then finally the furnace went. Like my AC unit went. The AC unit actually entirely. And I had to have it replaced. Now it was the original AC unit. So it was like that contractor grade. I don't remember the name of it. But I remember talking with my AC guy, and you know, he came in, replaced it. It was like $7,000 to replace this thing. And I remember at that time, my wife and I were like, the YouTube channel's growing. Hardware, I'm continuing to grow in hardware. And at that time, I was starting to get hardware in from resellers and vendors that were interested in partnering with me as a YouTuber. And I was just like, go, go, go. And I think at that point, I can't remember when, but at some point during my journey, I decided, maybe in the middle of things, to finally show my face. And it was like stepping into like January, I think it was. And I actually did it with Red Fox Crypto. I was doing this Meet the Miner series. If you go on the channel, you can look at the playlist. And I was like, man, I want to kick off the year with Meet the Miner, but Meet the Miner for me. And have Red Fox almost host it on my channel. And that was different. You know, I finally was like, I want to get my face in front of things. I was doing a lot more interviews and one-on-one content collaborations with people, and I was never showing my face. So it's just like them on camera and then like my logo sitting there, and that was it. And it was just like, in order to take my content to the next level, I decided it was time. Like, I had built up a good following. I think maybe I was at 30 or 40,000. I don't remember exactly. It's all a blur. Sometime in the last 3 years. But finally decided to do that, and I'm glad I did. It worked out well, especially like looking back, starting to attend events and stuff like that, and a lot of the collab videos I did with different people. It felt so much better to do it with other people, like to actually have my face on camera and such. So jumping ahead there, you know, back to where we were talking, the AC unit had gone out. We had to replace it, and chatting with my wife, you know, we were like, all right, we got to do something. We cannot be mining in the house. And I remember I even tried to move things, like some things, into the garage, and then actually full-size ASICs in the garage, and just having that screaming inside of the garage. You could hear it in the house, and it was a mess. But it was like, man, we as miners, like, we really try. Like, we really try to make things work in the environment that we're in. Whether it's, you know, GPU, trying to mine in a closet, like, you guys insane? But hey, I did the dumb stuff, you know, the grow tent, the mining room, the garage, like anywhere we could. And finally I was like, all right, I've seen Hash Raptor do videos on sheds, and I started to see some other people in the space that weren't directly in like GPU mining, but were in ASICs that were doing shed videos. And I remember chatting it out a little bit with my wife, and it was like, it's out of the house, so we don't hear the sound. The heat is managed very easily in a separate building. Can we make this work? And it was like, absolutely. So we built that first shed. Should have made it, looking back, much bigger, but it is what it is. You know, I had this grand plan, you know, come on now, guys. Now, lean-to style was really good. The layout was really good for GPU mining. The fans were absolutely overkill. I had like, I have 4 T20s in there or whatever from AC Infinity. Like, complete overkill. Even now, I only run one fan in there, and it's the middle of summer. It's the end of July at the time of recording this. So we built the shed, built it for GPUs, and at that time, I had built a friendship with my electrician, who came recommended locally, who had helped me with some of the wiring in my basement. Because when I did this room, I actually put 3 30 amp 240 volts in there. There's actually one hooked up still that I use for testing. And even he thought I was crazy when I was doing that mining room. But he had helped me with the shed, which worked out really, really well. And it was actually really cool. You know, as I started to friend him, you know, I didn't like, when he first got started, he was like, this is crazy what you're doing. He's like, I will do your electrical work for free. Just teach me about crypto. Amazing trade-off. Honestly, it worked out great. Saved me thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars just by doing that, and it worked out great, and built a friendship, and we'll continue that on here in a minute. But you know, things worked out in the shed, but I started to add more and more like mid-size miners So I had like all my mini box miners in there. I had my GPUs in there. And then I started to add things like L3 pluses and gold shell X5s and, starting to get into these light miners, KD Light, right? KD Light. Yeah. KD Light and some of these other ones out there. And I needed more power. And so I worked with Mr. Electrician and we added 2 more 30 amp 240 volts. So in my shed alone out here, I was running 150 amps, leaving 50 amps left from my house. Probably wasn't the safest now that I look back at it. So as time went on, YouTube channel grew. On top of that, we were starting to get more and more full-size ASICs. I was buying some, I was getting some in from sponsorships and partnerships, and I needed a home for them. And hosting was always an idea out there, but never really, tapped into it at that point. And I was actually chatting with Mr. Electrician, and this was not last August, so maybe a few months before that, maybe like last June or something. And I had this idea. His property was nearby. He lives about 10, 15 minutes from me. And I had this idea of, man, if I bought another shed, could I put it on his property and like piggyback off his electric, kind of like what we did here? And I remember chatting with him about it. And he was like, I was like, why don't you go and, split it with me? Blah, blah, blah. I'll cover your house electric and all this stuff. And he's like, actually, why don't you save your money for buying a shed? He's like, I got an old vinyl 12 by 12 shed. Got a bunch of junk in it. You can use it. All I have is like a riding mower and a bunch of junk on the shelves. And man, I remember the first time he opened that shed up and showed it to me. And I was like, it was a mess. It was dirty, grungy. But I was like, man, you know this moment when you're like, I can see it. Like, I can see where this would go. And man, I spent hours, days, weeks working on that shed. He helped me out with the electrical and stuff. But I mean, we painted it and replaced walls in it and made it work. And man, that was like ASIC shed version 1. And we got, 12 ASICs in there, and we were running off his house. So we were running 150 amps at all times. And it worked out really well. We found this crazy loophole with the power supplier to get unlimited electric for 12 months. For a set locked in price. It was crazy, super cheap. I was like, by the time you did the math, it was right below 5 cents, and it worked out awesome. But I ran that and filled that with ASICs pretty quickly, about 12 ASICs total where we were at, maybe a little bit less. And as the months went on, and this was leading up to, I don't know, July of this past year, or going back several months ago, I knew that I would have to find a better solution for power. And also I wanted to expand more in the shed. I was sending ASICs out for hosting with Terra hosting and block ops and mining. And I knew I would have to find more. Like I needed more room for ASICs. And during that time, my shed back home, man, my GPUs, even now they're off right now. Just GPU mining is just not where it's been in the past. So I'm not using that power here at home. I'm running a bunch of, my ice rivers, my jazz miners in my shed here, a few gold shell miners, but no GPUs. But going back just a few months ago, put this grand plan in place to get a 400 amp dedicated service at the shed that I was running 150 amps from my neighbor's house. And I also had the idea of like, how can I support more miners, manage the heat, but really the sound. Now he's at like the end of a neighborhood. So like we were kind of getting by, but you could still hear these things roaring from the road. And so I was like, okay, I need more power, but things need to be quieter. And I don't want to manage the heat. It was getting hot inside that with just a single rack in the middle with the ASICs and some big exhaust fans. And so that's when like I started to brainstorm ideas. If I could do a full inline fan system for every ASIC miner and get dedicated power in there of 400 amps, I was actually hoping for 600, maybe we could make this happen. And the stars aligned. Like Power company came out, was like, oh, you want to put a shop in the back of your yard? Sure, no problem. Sounds good. And they were like, you know, I wanted a 600 amp. They were like, well, you can go with a 400 amp and then you don't have to do this, this, and this. You don't have to get this permit. You don't have to do this cabinet. I'm like, yes, I want that. And like, things just started to come together. And I won't go fully into the whole shed setup, but I have a whole video on the channel. I'll link it down below, put it at the end too, of just building that out with boatloads of help. Lots of friends, individuals coming in. Joey Gambit came out for a week, a community member from Jersey, to build it all. Like, it just, it worked out awesome. And now look where we are. Now we're a few months later. We're running the shed here with kind of low watt miners. I got an ASIC shed that's almost full. As of today, I have 5 slots left. 5 slots left in that shed. Today's July 25th. I got 15 ASICs hosted right now with a variety of different companies. And it's like, dang, like, what now? You know what I mean? Like, where do I go from here? And it's nuts to think that I had a community member reach out to me like a week ago and go, I'm going to get out of crypto. I will sell you my Caspa miners. Caspa miners, and there's a few Jazz miners in there. And we came to an agreement on a price. And it's crazy to think that like in a month from now, I'm flying out to Denver, Colorado, buying 12 ASIC miners, and then driving them across country back with my son. We're actually making a whole road trip, father-son road trip out of this. And it's like, it really got me thinking of like, 3 years ago, I started this. Sorry, a little teary. 3 years ago, I started this and could barely afford a 970. And now, like, I'm going and buying 12 ASIC miners in just like one trip. Like, the fact that I can afford that's crazy. So it's nuts to think of like how crypto has affected my life so positively. And especially when you look at like YouTube, you know, I mean, think of the doors that have opened for me for YouTube. Like, YouTube has just, it's been an absolute roller coaster of growth, of bear market, stagnant, just powering through. I mean, there was a time I was trying to do a video every day, and just like the learning experience along the way. It's been nuts. I mean, YouTube is, when people say YouTube is like a science, it truly is. Absolutely, truly is. I mean, I got to give a huge shout out to Seb Heslow. He doesn't get the credit that he deserves, but him and I meet every week, Monday morning, I think it is, for an hour. A guy that I've never met before. And we chat for an hour about YouTube. Just YouTube. Like, that's it. Just what's working, what's not working, what's successful, what's not successful. Like, it's absolutely insane that like I've been doing that with him for over a year. A guy I've never met in person, but like we talk like we've known each other for years, and just like sharing in success, sharing in failures, learning. I mean, gosh, you guys wouldn't believe the amount of times that him and I just sat around talking about thumbnail strategy. It's stupid, honestly is. But YouTube's opened so many doors where I've attended events. I've had companies fly me out. I've done these crazy mining farm tours. Like, what? 3 years ago, I was a guy that never even had a crypto mining rig with like 2 970s. It's like absolutely nuts. And, you know, have I made money? Absolutely. I've done very well with it. My family's in a very good place. Am I a millionaire? No, absolutely not. I mean, but I've also put a lot back in, you know, I've had my crypto work for me. Not only have I reinvested it, a lot of the things, the growth has been paid for with crypto, but, you know, I did crazy things like I used crypto to pay for family vacations. I finally had an opportunity where like I could take my family and go on vacations and not worry about money, and paid medical bills for my family, and kids braces. Oh my gosh, why are kids braces so expensive? And like purchase my wife's car, like all of the, you know, having that opportunity to do that. So like, even though I would have loved to have kept every single penny of crypto, and I probably should have looking back, but like it's gone to good use. It's not like I bought a Ferrari and put it in my garage. You know what I mean? Like, guys, I drive a 2007 Nissan Rogue with 154,000 miles on it. Like, I'm not buying cars for myself based off of this between that. And it's been an absolute blessing. It really has. So where do we go from here? Like, what's next now that we're 35 minutes into this? So, I've been thinking a lot recently on like, where do I go from here? I have an opportunity and some things are in motion that I will be having a third site. You know, we got the smaller shed here. I have my ASIC shed at my electrician's house. I got a bunch of things hosted, and I may have an opportunity coming up to have a third location. A lot of things in the works. We'll see what happens. It's probably going to be like a quarter container or something of that sort. But yeah, so we're kind of seeing, you know, where we go from there. Am I hosting? No, don't ask. It's for me. But like, with that being said, I've really started to do a lot of number crunching, and not into the weeds too much, but enough to really make me think of like, what's next. And it really is like, crypto is absolutely on the horizon. Continue will be. You know, I love it. I enjoy it with a passion. I enjoy making content and videos and things like that. But it's also, I haven't said anything about this yet, but I don't do this as my full-time job. I've continued to work. You know, it's something that Red Panda Mining touts all the time, and I've talked with him about it a few times over the years. As much as I give Panda a hard time, he's always a great person to connect with when you're kind of thinking through some of these things. And he's always said, you know, keep working that day job, because, you know, crypto is such a roller coaster, and it really was. I mean, look at the bear market. I mean, YouTube views were abysmal. Crypto profits were abysmal. You were literally just stacking as much as you could. And I've had plenty of success stories. I'm not even going to go into it on things that I mined during the bear market, GPU mining, or Helium 5G, or whatever it is, Chlor, whatever it is, Solana, and then all of a sudden it came out of it and done very, very well with it. But it's something I've thought a lot about recently on when do I fully commit to crypto mining and fully commit to this, whatever this is, right? As a YouTuber, and trying to decide on, you know, when I go full time as a YouTuber and as a crypto miner. Like, crypto mining is no longer a hobby, no longer part time. It's a living and breathing it. And like, how big could I grow? Like, you know, what could this turn into? And then on the flip side, if I commit more time to YouTube or dedicate my time to YouTube, I mean, think of it like right now, I work a 8 to 9 hour day in the career that I'm in, and I've done well in the career that I'm in. And then I spend the evenings doing this and the weekends doing this and managing my time and everything and energy. And so it's like, man, how great could we get the YouTube channel to be? How much better of a quality could my content be? Could I deliver a better product to you guys if I was doing this as my career? But the challenge is, as you guys know, when you're weighing options, is, you know, I'm the primary breadwinner in my family. I have 3 kids. My wife is a stay-at-home mom who homeschools my kids. Like, all that responsibility falls on me financially when it comes down to like, hey, paying insurance for a family of 5. You know, costs of living not going down. I think all of you guys know that 100%. So it's definitely like taking that leap, that leap of faith on like, hey, do I take that step forward, and when's the right time? And I think I very much learned that like, never is a good time. It really isn't. There's no ideal time that it like lines up perfectly to go like, yep, we're good now, because bear market could hit again. And so like, where does that put us? So yeah, where do we go from here is a big question mark. I think I will absolutely be continuing to expand with crypto mining, expanding with ASICs, with growing with the third location. Over the next few weeks, you're going to see a ton of like deep pin videos. I've been really getting into deep pin recently, especially here at home. Yeah, I mean, man, in the next few weeks, I'm going on a road trip with my son, and we're going to film the whole thing and create multiple videos out of it, of flying across country, buying these ASIC miners, and then driving its 24-hour drive back. So there's a lot of really good stuff to come down the pipeline on the channel, which is really exciting. So I didn't plan for this to be a 45-minute video, not gonna lie. I had some notes over here on like, here's the things to talk about in the timeline, and kind of jumped around a little bit. I do apologize, but it's crazy to think that now, 3 years later, we're at 100,499. Who's going to be the next person to bump that up to 1,000 or 100,500? Because we're at 100,499 right now. Have it on my screen next to me. We are just shy of 12 million views, and we're, I don't know, 620 videos on the channel right now, which is absolutely insane. It doesn't include shorts. And we're July 25th at 11:19 at night. And it's like, wow, the last 3 years have led to this. Like, absolutely insane. I think I said insane like 50 times in this video. But anyways, guys, that's going to wrap things up. I rambled on. I talked a lot. I appreciate you guys listening, following along, supporting the channel, even some of the positive and even some of the negative comments that kind of hold me accountable. I really do appreciate it 100%. So feel free to comment down below on any of the stupid stuff I just talked about for the last 40 minutes. Hopefully you enjoyed my journey as a crypto miner and as a YouTuber over the last 3 years. Well, have a good one, guys. Sorry to interrupt your video, but check this out. I constantly get emails from the community asking me about trustworthy hosting facilities in the United States that I recommend. Well, I got you covered. Listen up. A few months back, I visited Block Ops Mining's brand new facility in Central Arkansas. The team there was super professional, knowledgeable, and everyday miners like you and I. After visiting the facility, I sent them a few of my ASIC miners for hosting and have been super happy with their service and communication. Go contact Block Ops Mining directly down below in the video description and tell them the Hobbyist Miner sent you for great pricing on miners and hosting.